The Discovery. The Galactic Council had always believed that humans were weak. Compared to the mighty reptilian warlords of the Zorth Dominion, who could crush steel with their bare claws, humans were fragile. Compared to the psychic Eldari, who could move mountains with their minds, humans were powerless. And compared to the ancient Sci-Fi, who had ruled the stars for thousands of years, humans were nothing but newcomers. That belief changed the day Captain Elias Carter was captured. The war between humans and the Dominion had been short and brutal. The Dominion had superior ships, weapons, and technology. Earth's colonies fell one by one. Millions of humans were taken as prisoners, including soldiers like Elias. He was held aboard a Dominion warship, deep in enemy space. The prison cell was cold, made of black metal, with only a single light above. Chains bound his wrists, glowing red-hot, designed to burn if he resisted. 2 Dominion guards stood at the door, their scaled faces watching him with cruel amusement. Then the warlord entered. High Warlord Xalzor was massive, even by Dominion standards. His black armor shone under the dim lights, and his piercing yellow eyes studied Elias with curiosity. His voice rumbled like thunder. "You are one of the last human soldiers alive. Your people have fallen." Elias said nothing. "You are weak," Xalzor continued, stepping closer. "Your species has no claws, no fangs, no psychic strength. You are nothing but clever animals who got lucky with technology." Elias raised his head slowly, his green eyes locking onto Xalzor's. "You have no idea what humans can do," he said quietly. Xalzor laughed, deep and mocking. "Oh, and what can you do, little human?" Elias took a deep breath. He wasn't sure if it would work. He had only felt it once before, in the heat of battle, when fear and rage had mixed inside him like a storm. But now, standing before the warlord who wanted his species extinct, something deep inside him awakened. The chains around his wrists began to glow, not red, but blue. The Dominion guard stepped back, confused. Xalzor frowned. Then fire erupted from Elias's hands. It started as a flicker, then grew into a roaring inferno. The air in the room became scorching hot. The guards shouted in alarm, drawing their weapons, but Elias lifted his hands higher, and the fire rose with him. The flames did not burn him. They danced around his arms, alive, waiting for his command. Xalzor took a step back. His eyes, once filled with arrogance, were now wide with something the warlord had never felt before: fear. Elias clenched his fists, and the fire exploded outward. The chains melted into glowing liquid, dripping onto the cold floor. The guards fired their plasma rifles, but the energy bolts never reached him. They dissolved in the heat before they could strike. Elias took a step forward. The flames followed. Xalzor growled, drawing his massive warblade, but it was too late. Elias swung his hand, and a wave of fire slammed into the warlord's chest, sending him crashing into the metal wall. Smoke filled the room. The guards fled in terror. Elias stood in the center of the room, breathing heavily, staring at his own hands. The flames slowly faded, but the heat in his veins remained. He had felt it before, just for a moment, back on the battlefield, when he had watched his squad die around him. But now there was no doubt. This was real. Humans had magic. For centuries, the galaxy had believed humans were ordinary. That belief was a lie. Somewhere, hidden deep within humanity's DNA, was something no alien race had, a connection to forces beyond science, beyond reason. And now, the secret was out. The Dominion warship was in chaos. Alarms blared. Soldiers shouted orders. But Elias was already moving. He stepped over Xalzor's unconscious body and walked into the hallway. Guards rushed toward him, but he didn't stop. The fire returned. With a flick of his wrist, a stream of blue flames shot forward, melting the enemy's weapons. They screamed and fell back. The once mighty Dominion warriors were running from one human. Elias didn't smile. There was no time for celebration. If he had this power, others did too. And if the galaxy found out, humanity would be hunted. He needed to escape. He needed to warn the others. Most of all, he needed to find the truth. Because one thing was certain now: humans were not weak. They were the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and the war had only just begun. The secret of Earth. The Dominion warship was in chaos. Elias Carter sprinted down the metal corridors, flames flickering around his hands. The ship's alarms blared, warning of a containment breach. Dominion guards shouted orders, but none dared approach. They had seen what Elias could do. He had magic. The word echoed in his mind. It was impossible. It defied everything he knew about science, biology, and the universe itself. Yet the truth was undeniable. He had melted his chains, burned through armored warriors, and stopped plasma bolts with nothing but his will. How? He had no time for answers. He had to escape. Ahead, he spotted an open hangar bay where Dominion fighters were docked. His only chance. But as he ran, a voice crackled over the ship's speakers. "Seal all exits. The human must not escape." The metal doors began to close. Elias pushed himself harder, his heart pounding. He was too far. He would never make it. Unless a strange instinct took over. He raised his hands and focused. Heat surged through his body, rising from his chest, flowing into his arms. The world around him slowed. Then he threw himself forward. A blast of fire exploded behind him, launching him through the narrowing gap. He crashed onto the hangar floor, rolling until he hit a supply crate. His vision swam. His body ached. But he was alive. Elias forced himself up. He spotted a small fighter, just big enough for one person. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward it. A squad of Dominion warriors entered the hangar, raising their weapons. He stretched out his hand. A wave of fire roared from his palm, sweeping across the floor. The soldiers dove for cover as Elias leaped into the cockpit. Come on," he muttered, flipping switches. The controls were unfamiliar, but flying was flying. The engines roared to life. The Dominion warship's cannons turned toward him. Not today. Elias slammed the throttle. The fighter shot forward, bursting through the force field and into open space. Plasma bolts streaked past, missing by inches. He spun the ship into a wild dive, weaving between incoming fire. A massive explosion behind him signaled the destruction of the hangar. He didn't look back. He was free. But now he needed answers. The truth about humanity. Elias set course for the nearest human outpost, a hidden resistance base on Titan's moon. As he flew, his mind raced. Where had this power come from? No human in history had ever displayed abilities like this. If humanity had magic, why had no one discovered it before? Then, a memory surfaced. A long time ago, when he was a child, he had heard an old Earth legend. Stories of ancient civilizations, lost knowledge, and forgotten abilities. Myths of powerful beings who could shake the world with their minds, control fire, and heal wounds with a touch. The stories had been dismissed as fantasy. But what if they weren't? What if magic had always been part of humanity, but something had suppressed it? Elias opened the ship's database, searching for information. As he read through old classified reports, one fact stood out. Earth's atmosphere was unique. The electromagnetic field, the mineral composition, the air itself, it all created an environment that somehow dampened energy signatures. Scientists had always believed this was a natural phenomenon. But what if it wasn't? What if Earth was never meant to suppress magic? What if someone made it that way? The thought chilled him. If that was true, then someone, some powerful force, had been controlling humanity's evolution for thousands of years. And now that humans were leaving Earth, the truth was coming back. The Galactic reacts. Meanwhile, across the stars, the news of Elias's escape spread like wildfire. The Galactic Council convened an emergency meeting. Dozens of alien leaders gathered in a massive chamber, holograms flickering above them. High Warlord Salzor stood at the center, his face burned, his pride shattered. This human is not normal. His voice was tight with rage. He has abilities that should not exist. A tall, silver-skinned Eldari noble frowned. Impossible. Humans have no psychic potential. A Sci-Fi scholar adjusted his robes. If this is true, we must investigate. If humans have powers, it could upset the balance of the galaxy. Zalzur slammed his fist on the table. You don't understand. This is not potential. This is power, and if one human can do it, his voice dropped into a growl. Then they all can. Silence filled the room. The leaders exchanged nervous glances. The Eldari noble leaned forward. If humans truly have magic, then they must be eliminated before they realize their full strength. The council agreed. A galaxy-wide order was issued. Find every human outside Earth. Capture or kill them before it's too late. The hunt had begun. Elias's next move. Elias finally reached Titan's moon, landing in a hidden underground base. As he stepped out of the fighter, dozens of human rebels rushed to meet him. He saw familiar faces, old friends, lost soldiers, survivors of fallen colonies. A woman with cybernetic eyes, Commander Layla Voss, pushed through the crowd. Elias, what the hell happened to you? Elias raised his hand. A small flame flickered to life in his palm. The crowd gasped. Layla's eyes widened. Elias clenched his fist, extinguishing the fire. His voice was calm but firm. We were wrong about ourselves, about our past, about everything. He met Layla's gaze. We have magic, and the galaxy just declared war on us. The hunt begins. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humans had magic. At first, many dismissed it as propaganda, a desperate rumor created by human rebels. But the Dominion knew the truth. High Warlord Salzor had seen it with his own eyes. His warriors had faced Elias Carter and barely survived. The Galactic Council couldn't ignore the danger. If one human could wield magic, then others could too. And if that happened, humanity could become unstoppable. The decision was swift. Every human outside of Earth was now a target. The Council issued an emergency directive. All human colonies, space stations, and outposts must be purged. No human must be left alive. The Great Hunt had begun. Human colonies fall. The first attack came on Europa Station, a peaceful research base orbiting Jupiter's moon. The station had no weapons, no soldiers, just scientists. They never stood a chance. A fleet of Dominion warships arrived without warning. Plasma cannons fired relentlessly, tearing through the station's hull. The alarms blared as civilians scrambled for escape pods. But there was no mercy. The pods were shot down before they could launch. The station burned, and the few survivors were dragged away in chains. The same fate awaited Mars Colony and Outpost Vega 9. Everywhere humans had settled, the alien fleets arrived like executioners, wiping them out before they could discover their powers. The galaxy was making sure humanity would never rise. Elias goes into hiding. On Titan's moon, Elias Carter and the remaining human rebels watched the destruction unfold on their stolen communication feeds. One by one, the red blinking lights representing human colonies vanished. Layla Voss, the resistance leader, slammed her fist on the table. This isn't war. This is extermination. Elias remained silent. He could feel the weight of every lost life pressing down on him. The guilt, the anger, it burned inside him like an untamed flame. This is because of me, he muttered. Layla turned to him. No, this is because they're afraid. And fear makes them reckless. She pointed at the screen. They think they can wipe us out before we figure out what we are. Elias clenched his fists. He had barely scratched the surface of his power, but he knew one thing. Humans were meant for more. If the galaxy wanted to hunt them, then it was time to fight back. A dangerous plan. Elias stood before the gathered rebels. Some were soldiers, others were scientists, engineers, smugglers, people who had lost everything. He took a deep breath. We can't keep running. The longer we hide, the more of our people die. A man in the crowd scoffed. And what do you want us to do? Fight an entire galaxy. With what? Elias stepped forward. With this. He raised his hand, and a sphere of blue fire appeared in his palm. The room gasped. The flames didn't burn like normal fire. They moved unnaturally, bending in ways that defied logic. This isn't just power, Elias said. It's proof. Proof that we were never weak. Proof that we've been held back. Layla crossed her arms. Even if we have magic, how do we use it? We don't even understand it yet. Elias turned to her. Then we learn. We train. We adapt. Because if we don't, we die. Silence filled the room. No one argued. Because they all knew he was right. The Galactic Council's next move. On the Dominion homeworld, Warlord Salzor stood before the Galactic Council. His burned armor was a reminder of his failure against Elias Carter. This is not just about humans, he growled. This is about survival. The Eldari noble watched him with cold eyes. You're afraid of a handful of humans. Salzor slammed his fist on the table. Not a handful. All of them. You don't understand what's happening. This magic isn't a rare mutation. It's in every human. The room fell silent. Salzor leaned forward. His voice was dark. Right now, they don't know how to use it. But soon, they will. And when that happens, we will be the ones running. A Sci-Fi scientist spoke up. Then we must end this before it begins. The Eldari noble nodded. We must make sure humanity is never allowed to reach its full potential. The council passed its final order. Every remaining human was to be hunted down. Their colonies, their ships, their entire species would be erased from history. And if Earth itself became a problem, then Earth would burn. Humanity is back. Elias didn't sleep that night. He sat alone in the command center, staring at the map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the lost human colonies. Blue dots marked the last few hiding places. They were running out of time. Layla walked in and placed a hand on his shoulder. We have our first target, she said. Elias looked at the screen. A Dominion supply station, lightly guarded, full of weapons and technology. A small target, but a first step. Elias stood, fire flickering in his eyes. Then let's give them something to fear. The hunt had begun. But this time, humans would be the hunters. Humanity's last stand. The time for running was over. For weeks, Elias Carter and his resistance fighters had been planning. The galaxy thought humans were finished, scattered and weak. But Elias had given them hope. And now, they were ready to fight back. Their first target was Outpost X-17, a Dominion supply station orbiting a dead moon. It was a critical hub, providing fuel and weapons to the fleets hunting humans. If they could take it, they could arm themselves for the coming war. The mission was dangerous. The Dominion expected no resistance. Tonight, they would learn the truth. Humans were no longer prey. The ATKK begins. The stolen Dominion ship drifted toward Outpost X-17, broadcasting a fake clearance code. Inside, Elias stood among his team. Warriors, ex-soldiers, and rebels, all ready for battle. Layla Voss, his second in command, checked her weapon. We do this fast, in and out. Elias nodded. We take the station, secure the weapons, and vanish before reinforcements arrive. The ship docked. The doors hissed open. The Dominion guards barely had time to react before the humans struck. Elias moved first. Fire erupted from his hands, engulfing the nearest guards in a blast of heat. The others opened fire, but the plasma bolts bent midair, twisting away from him. His control over magic had grown. Layla and her fighters moved in, silenced weapons cutting down Dominion troops. Alarms blared. The base shook as explosions tore through the corridors. The Dominion had underestimated them. Big mistake. Unleashing the storm. As Elias fought through the station, something inside him changed. Every attack felt natural, like this power had always been inside him, waiting to be awakened. A Dominion officer aimed a plasma rifle at him. Elias didn't think, he simply reached out. The rifle flew from the officer's hands, ripped away by an unseen force. Elias clenched his fist, and the air around the officer collapsed. The Dominion soldier crumpled to the floor, unconscious before he hit the ground. Layla saw it happen. You just crushed the air around him. Elias exhaled. I didn't even try. The power was growing, and he wasn't alone. Across the station, other humans were discovering their own abilities. A resistance fighter dodged incoming fire at impossible speeds. Another crushed a metal door with her bare hands. A third lifted a Dominion soldier without touching him. The truth was undeniable. Magic wasn't rare. It was waking up in all of them. And the galaxy had every reason to be afraid. The Dominion struck keys back. The battle was almost won. The humans had taken the command center, locked down the station, and secured a massive stockpile of weapons. But then, disaster. A Dominion warship appeared on the station's scanners. Not just any warship. Zalzur's flagship. The warlord had tracked them. Elias stared at the screen. His heart pounded. We have to go. Now. Layla's fingers flew across the controls. They're charging weapons. Boom. The first blast struck the station, sending shockwaves through the halls. The lights flickered. Metal groaned under the impact. The Dominion had come to wipe them out. The last stand. Elias and his team raced to the docking bay. Their stolen ship was waiting, but the warship was already locking down escape routes. More explosions. The station trembled. Debris fell from the ceiling. Layla cursed. We won't make it. Elias closed his eyes. He could feel the heat of the fire still burning in his veins. The power inside him wasn't just fire, wasn't just strength. It was something greater. Something that could change everything. He turned to the others. Get on the ship. Layla frowned. What? No, we're leaving together. Elias shook his head. Not if I don't stop them. She realized what he meant. That's suicide. Elias's hands ignited with blue fire. No, it's war. And he stepped toward the airlock. Facing the warlord. The airlock doors slid open, revealing the blackness of space beyond the force field. The Dominion warship hovered in the distance, its cannons glowing with deadly energy. And standing at the edge of the docking bridge was Zalzur. The warlord's armor gleamed under the red emergency lights. His reptilian eyes burned with fury. I should have killed you when I had the chance, Zalzur growled. Elias didn't blink. You tried. You failed. Zalzur drew his massive warblade. Your species is weak. You think magic makes you strong. It makes you a threat. And threats must be crushed. Elias raised his hands. Fire swirled around them. Then come and try. The warlord charged. Elias met him head-on. The bridge erupted into chaos, flames, steel, and raw power clashing in a battle that would decide the fate of the resistance. Elias dodged Zalzur's strikes with inhuman speed. His magic flowed like never before, bending the air, twisting the flames. But Zalzur was a warrior. He had fought for centuries, and his strength was terrifying. A single strike from his warblade sent Elias crashing into the metal floor. Pain shot through his body. The warlord loomed over him, raising his weapon for the final blow. This ends now, Zalzur growled. Elias looked up, his vision blurred, his body weak. And then something changed. A spark, a realization. This power wasn't just inside him. It wasn't just fire or strength. It was something more. Elias reached out, not with his hands, but with his mind. The air shattered. Zalzur froze. His warblade stopped mid-swing. His entire body was trapped, suspended in the air. Elias stood. Zalzur's eyes widened in horror. "What are you?" Elias clenched his fist. The space around Zalzur collapsed inward, and the warlord was gone. Not dead, not destroyed, erased. The Dominion warship fired its cannons, but the energy never reached the station. Elias lifted his hand, and the blasts vanished into nothing. The resistance ship launched. Layla's voice crackled through the radio. "Elias, we have to go." He turned away from the warship, stepping onto the shuttle. His mind was racing, his heart pounding. Magic wasn't just fire. It wasn't just strength. It was control. And he was just getting started. The battle that Chi-Che-Ng-De-Ev Uriting. The universe would never see humans the same way again. The moment Elias Carter erased Warlord Zalzur from existence, everything changed. The warlord had been feared across the stars, a symbol of Dominion power, and Elias had ended him with a thought. The resistance ship blasted away from Outpost X-17, escaping just before the Dominion warship collapsed in on itself, consumed by the strange energy Elias had unleashed. The human rebels had won their first real battle, but Elias knew the war had only just begun. Now, the entire galaxy would come for them. The Galactic reacts. The destruction of Zalzur's warship sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. News spread quickly. Humans had not only survived, but they had done the impossible. They had killed a Dominion warlord, destroyed one of their strongest fleets, and demonstrated abilities that defied logic. On the Dominion homeworld, chaos erupted. The warlords held an emergency meeting. One commander slammed his fist on the table. "We cannot allow this to continue. If humans are awakening abilities like this, they will be unstoppable." And Eldari Noble's silver eyes glowed with unease. What Elias Carter did to Zalzur, it wasn't natural. It was something else, something even we do not understand. A cipher scientist leaned forward, his voice trembling. "I have studied the footage. That was not fire, nor telekinesis, nor any form of psychic manipulation we have encountered before. The human did not kill Zalzur." The room fell silent. He erased him. The council was afraid. The extermination of humanity had just gone from a priority to an emergency. The order was clear: gather every fleet, every soldier, every weapon. The time for hunting was over. Now, the war must end. Humanity's to your keys first. Back at the Titan resistance base, Elias stood before his people. Hundreds of humans, fighters, survivors, engineers, looked at him, waiting for answers. Layla Voss stepped forward. "You scared them," she said. "The Dominion, the Council, all of them. They're coming for us." Elias took a deep breath. "Good." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Layla frowned. "Elias, they have the numbers, the weapons, the fleets." Elias nodded. "And they think we're going to run. They think we're still weak." He stepped onto a makeshift platform, addressing everyone. "For centuries, we were told we were nothing special, that we were just another species in the vast galaxy." He clenched his fist, fire flickering around his knuckles. "But we were never just another species. Someone, something, tried to keep us from discovering what we truly are." He looked at the people before him, many of them scared, but all of them ready. They wanted to wipe us out before we realized our power. They failed. He raised his hand, and the room shook, not from an explosion, not from an attack. From him. The metal walls vibrated. The air itself seemed to bend around him. The energy within Elias was growing stronger. He could feel it. "We don't wait for them to come to us," he said. "We take the fight to them. The first strike he. The Dominion expected humans to keep running. They didn't expect them to attack. Days later, a Dominion war factory orbiting a gas giant went dark. Surveillance feeds showed nothing. No explosions, no enemy ships. One moment, the factory was active. The next, it was gone. Entirely. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Just gone. Dominion investigators found no wreckage. No debris. It was as if the station had never existed. Elias had done it again. And now, the Dominion knew. They were no longer fighting just humans. They were fighting something far worse. The Dominion's last weapon. Desperate, the Dominion turned to their final option. A weapon so ancient, so dangerous, that it had been locked away for millennia. A superweapon known only as the Extinction Core. It was not a bomb, not a fleet. It was a reality-breaking device, a weapon capable of collapsing entire planets, tearing them from existence. And it had one target: Earth. The Dominion knew that if they could destroy Earth, humanity would never recover. Their history, their home, their connection to whatever power they had awakened, all of it would be gone. The order was given. The core was activated. A countdown had begun. In 7 days, Earth would cease to exist. Elias makes a choice. The moment Elias learned about the weapon, something inside him snapped. The fire, the energy, the power, it surged through him stronger than ever before. He had been fighting to protect humanity. Now he had to fight to save it. Layla stood beside him, scanning the data. We don't have enough ships. Even if we launch everything, we can't stop the Dominion fleet before they reach Earth. Elias closed his eyes. He could feel it again. The power. The force that had erased Excelsior. The force that had destroyed the war factory. It was inside him. It was inside all of them. And he finally understood. Magic wasn't just fire. It wasn't just strength. It was creation. And if he could create, then he could destroy. He turned to Layla. Get everyone ready. She hesitated. Elias, what are you planning? He looked toward the stars. I'm going to end this war. The final confrontation. The countdown had begun. In 7 days, Earth would be erased. The Dominion's Extinction Core was unlike any weapon humanity had faced before. It wasn't just a bomb or a fleet. It was a device capable of collapsing an entire planet out of existence. Not destroyed, not invaded, just gone. If the core reached Earth, there would be nothing left. No ruins, no survivors, not even dust. Elias Carter stood on the command deck of the Resistance flagship, staring at the tactical display. A massive Dominion fleet escorted the core, guarding it like it was their last hope. Because it was. The Galactic Council had realized that humanity could no longer be contained. Their magic was awakening. Their power was growing. And if humanity wasn't stopped now, then nothing in the universe could stop them ever again. The battle for Earth would be humanity's last stand, or the day they claimed their rightful place among the stars. The humanity fleet assembles. The resistance forces had grown, but they were still outnumbered. The Dominion had thousands of warships. Humanity had hundreds. But numbers no longer told the full story, because the humans had something else. Magic. The first time they fought, Elias had been the only one with abilities. Now, dozens, hundreds of humans had awakened their powers. Some could manipulate fire and lightning. Others could move objects with their minds. Some could even heal wounds or see glimpses of the future. It wasn't enough to make them invincible, but it was enough to make them dangerous. Layla Voss paced beside Elias, watching the fleet gather. Even with magic, we can't hold against them forever. We need to take out the core before it gets close to Earth. Elias nodded. Then we cut straight through their defenses. No distractions. No drawn-out battle. We go for the heart. Layla smirked. A straight charge into the strongest fleet in the galaxy. Sounds crazy. Elias's hands flickered with blue fire. It's not crazy if it works. The battle begins. The moment the humanity fleet dropped out of hyperspace, the Dominion was waiting. Thousands of enemy ships formed an unbreakable wall in front of the core. The Dominion had expected this battle. They had prepared for it. But they hadn't prepared for what was coming next. The first wave hit hard. Human fighters weaved through the enemy lines, dodging plasma fire. Starships engaged in brutal dogfights, engines burning hot. But the Dominion pushed back. Hundreds of human ships were destroyed in the first 10 minutes. The resistance forces were brave, but bravery didn't stop plasma cannons. For a moment, it seemed like humanity would lose. Then Elias made his move. Elias unleashes his true power. Elias stood at the heart of the flagship, eyes closed, feeling the battle around him. He could sense every ship, every fighter, every explosion. The power inside him had been growing for weeks. He had erased Kalzor. He had destroyed a Dominion war factory. But this was something bigger, something deeper. He reached out, not with his hands, but with his mind. And the battlefield changed. The space around him bent. Time itself seemed to slow. The Dominion warships, once overwhelming, froze in place. On the human ships, pilots blinked in shock as their enemies stopped moving. Then, the Dominion fleet broke apart. Not with explosions, not with weapons, with Elias's will. Entire enemy warships vanished, erased from existence. Others imploded, crushed by invisible forces. The Dominion commanders panicked. What is happening? What is he? But Elias wasn't done. He turned his focus to the extinction core. The device had started its final charge. It was minutes away from activating. Elias reached for it, felt its energy. And he pushed. The core EQOLAPCEs. The core's power was immense. It had been created by ancient civilizations, long before the Dominion ruled the stars. It wasn't meant to be destroyed. But Elias was no ordinary human. He reached into the core's energy, into the raw force of its destruction. And he reversed it. The core, designed to erase planets, began erasing itself. The Dominion screamed in horror as their last weapon disintegrated in front of them. And then, it was over. The battle was won. The core was gone. The Dominion fleet, once the strongest in the galaxy, was shattered. Humanity had survived. But Elias knew the war wasn't truly over, because what he had just done should have been impossible. The AFTRMEDAK, ANUAGBGNs. As the remaining Dominion ships fled, Earth's skies remained untouched. The people of Earth had no idea how close they had come to destruction. Layla turned to Elias. "That wasn't magic," she said quietly. "That was something else." Elias didn't answer. He didn't know what it was either. Magic? Power? Something older, something deeper. One thing was certain. Humanity was no longer just another species in the galaxy. They were something more. Something the universe had never seen before. And soon, everyone would know. Because Elias Carter wasn't just the first human to unlock magic. He was the first of something new. Something the galaxy would never forget. An ingenuity for humanity. The war was over. The Dominion's extinction core had been destroyed. Their fleets were shattered. Their strongest warriors, their most powerful warlords, gone. Humanity had won. But as the battlefield fell silent, Elias Carter knew something deeper had changed. This wasn't just the end of a war. This was the beginning of something new. Earth Leerns the truth. For the first time in history, humanity was free from the fear of extinction. The people of Earth had spent years thinking they were alone, just another species in a vast galaxy, struggling to survive. Now, they knew the truth. The Resistance broadcasted footage of the final battle. Billions of humans watched as one of their own bent reality, erased warships, and single-handedly ended a war. Elias Carter was no longer just a soldier. He was a legend. Governments scrambled for answers. Scientists struggled to explain what they had seen. But one thing was undeniable. Humans had power. And that power was waking up across the planet. The Galactic Council fevels apart. Across the galaxy, the balance of power had shifted. For centuries, the Galactic Council had ruled with absolute control. But now, everything they thought they knew about humans had been shattered. Humans were not weak. Humans were not ordinary. Humans were something far greater. Fear spread through the alien empires. Some leaders called for peace, realizing that war with humanity was now impossible. Others demanded a new war, one that would end humanity before they grew even stronger. But deep down, they all knew the truth. It was too late. Humanity was no longer a species to conquer. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The awakening. Elias stood at the edge of a massive human fleet, looking out at the stars. Behind him, thousands of survivors, soldiers, refugees, explorers, waited for his next move. Layla Voss stepped beside him. "It's happening, isn't it?" Elias nodded. "They're waking up." All across Earth, and in the colonies that had survived, humans were discovering abilities they never knew they had. A scientist on Mars lifted a data pad without touching it. A farmer on Earth watched as water bent to her will. A dying man in a hospital suddenly healed himself. Magic wasn't rare. It had never been rare. It had been suppressed. For thousands of years, something, or someone, had kept humanity's true power locked away. But now, that lock was broken. And there was no stopping what was coming next. AMESSAGE to the Galaxy. The human fleet sent out a single transmission, broadcasted to every planet, every empire, every ruler. Elias Carter stood in front of the camera, his voice calm but firm. "We are not what you thought we were. You tried to erase us. You tried to keep us weak. You failed. Humanity is rising. And the galaxy will never be the same again." The unknown future. The war was over. But Elias knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere out there, the answers still waited. Who had locked away humanity's power? Why? And if humans had once been something more, what had they been? The stars stretched endlessly before them. The galaxy was vast. There were still secrets to uncover. But one thing was certain. Humanity had awakened, and nothing would ever stop them again.